The courtroom in Manchester, New Hampshire, was as unremarkable as one might expect. Rows of time-worn wooden benches under buzzing fluorescent lights, with a faded flag pinned to the back wall. Yet today, it would serve as the unlikely stage for a dramatic revelation that no one saw coming. Just before 10 a.m., Karoline Leavitt entered the room, calm, composed, and perhaps a touch too quiet for Judge Ronald Pierce's taste. She carried a slim folder and wore a navy suit that made her appear more like an analyst than a plaintiff. There was something in her measured stride, a quiet assurance born of having weathered far worse, that hinted she wasn't there merely to clear her name. Judge Pierce, infamous in this courthouse for his theatrical style and unpredictable rulings, regarded the space as his personal stage. To him, the gavel was not merely a symbol of justice, but a prop for performance. As he skimmed the docket and then looked up, his eyes locked on Karoline's name. With a dismissive sneer, he announced, loud enough for everyone to hear, "Ah, yes, Miss Leavitt, the woman with a reputation problem." The audience, largely composed of college students on a courtroom observation trip, shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Yet Karoline remained unfazed. "I'm here to give my statement, Your Honor," she replied evenly, her voice steady and unyielding. Her attorney, Malcolm Reyes, a reserved, meticulously prepared man from Lowell, rose briefly and interjected, "Your Honor, we'd appreciate a respectful tone in these proceedings. This is a defamation hearing." But Judge Pierce waved him off curtly. "Save it, counselor. I run this courtroom my way." Thus, the tone was set, part intimidation, part performance. Karoline ascended the stand, the clerk administering her oath. She adjusted the microphone as Raya, the court clerk, handed her a single page to begin her statement. Yet instead of reading verbatim, she fixed her gaze beyond the judge, past the lawyers, and addressed the room directly. "I came here today not to merely defend my reputation," she began, her voice calm but resolute, "because that has already been dragged through enough. I am here to tell the truth, because if I don't, I am no better than those who propagated lies from the start." Judge Pierce's expression remained dismissive as he leaned back, twirling a pen in his fingers. "And you're claiming that all this, lost contracts, whispers about your credibility, stems from a single remark made with the defendant at a fundraiser?" He challenged, his tone dripping with sarcasm. "Not merely a remark," Karoline retorted without pause, "but a calculated, false statement that was used to undermine my work. Jeremy Bellamy, a man in line for a major contract with my former firm, exploited that moment to secure a deal, using my name as collateral damage." A murmur rippled through the courtroom. Malcolm Reyes rose again. "Your Honor, we will provide comprehensive context, including witness statements and a detailed timeline." Yet Judge Pierce cut him off with dismissive wave. "You'll get your chance, counselor." The tension in the room thickened as Karoline remained silent, letting the weight of her words sink in. Then, unexpectedly, Malcolm reached into his briefcase and placed a sealed folder on the bench, a folder with a tab marked KL42. Judge Pierce glanced at it briefly before looking back at Karoline as if it were a bluff. "Go ahead. Finish your story," he said, leaning forward. Taking a measured breath, Karoline began speaking again, this time with a quiet precision that betrayed hours of private rehearsal. "After I left my role at the communications firm, a former colleague began circulating false claims that I had falsified press statements and manipulated campaign data. In 1 week alone, I lost 2 contracts, and even my landlord began questioning my lease. My name was used as a convenient scapegoat." Her words cut through the stifled air. Judge Pierce sighed and glanced at his clock. "So, you claim that a passing comment at a social event triggered a domino effect that ruined your career, and you believe this court should hold the defendant financially responsible?" "No," Karoline replied firmly. "I believe this court should hear the full story before deciding what deserves accountability." A hush fell over the room, the gallery, and even the observing students pausing in their scribbles. Raya handed her another document. "Please explain this email," the judge demanded. Karoline took it, a message from Bellamy to the defendant, sent 2 days before the fundraiser, stating, "Once we move Karoline out of the picture, the board will be far more flexible." Judge Pierce paused and asked, "You obtained this legally?" "Absolutely," she confirmed. It's part of the discovery files. The judge's smug expression faltered ever so slightly as whispers began to circulate. I'd like to request a recess. Judge Teller, a senior alternate judge, calmly declared. This will allow us to consider whether a recusal is appropriate. As the courtroom slowly emptied for recess, Judge Pierce's demeanor shifted. Some whispered that his office phone had already gone straight to voicemail, and unconfirmed reports suggested he was seen speaking in the parking garage with two suited men. Inside, Karoline sat, her eyes fixed straight ahead, exuding quiet determination. Malcolm Reyes leaned toward her and whispered, "That was a moment, right?" She simply nodded. "I just want the truth to stick." 10 minutes passed before the side door opened again, but this time not with Judge Pierce, but with Judge Andrea Teller, dressed in a plain gray blazer. She took the bench and addressed the room in a measured tone. Due to an administrative concern regarding the presiding judge, I have been assigned to review this matter. All proceedings are paused until I verify the facts. Without a hint of pleasantry, Judge Teller opened the sealed folder and read each page slowly. Karoline sat still, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. After nearly 5 minutes of silence, she met the judge's gaze as he spoke. "Miss Leavitt, I want to confirm, you obtained these records through public financial disclosures?" "Yes, Your Honor," Karoline answered. "They are archived in the New Hampshire Office of Judicial Conduct, and I cross-referenced them with public shareholder records from Massachusetts." Judge Teller then addressed the room. "I will now call a recess while I contact the state's Commission on Judicial Conduct for guidance. If these documents prove that there is a conflict of interest, specifically evidence linking Judge Pierce to a financial interest in the defendant's firm through a third-party equity group, then we must consider his recusal." As the recess began, people filed out, and a man in a denim jacket with horn-rimmed glasses approached Karoline softly. "You're Leavitt?" he asked. "I've been covering this court for years. I've never seen someone put Judge Pierce on his heels like that." Karoline simply smiled. "It's not about getting under his skin. It's about making sure people like him stop thinking they can play with other people's lives." Outside, the granite steps of the courthouse were alive with whispers and the clicking of phone screens. A staffer burst through the main doors, her face pale, phone in hand, and declared, "There's been a leak." In an instant, the word leak spread, phones buzzed, and within minutes, local legal blogs and national outlets were abuzz with headlines like "Judge Pierce linked to financial conflict in defamation case" and "Bombshell, Judge's secret financial ties exposed." Inside, the atmosphere was electric. Judge Teller reconvened the courtroom, now under new leadership, Judge Patrick Dwyer. "I have reviewed the preliminary documents," Judge Teller announced, "and have ordered an emergency review by the Judicial Conduct Commission. If the allegations are confirmed, Judge Pierce may be removed pending a full ethics investigation." Karoline's heart pounded as she watched the proceedings unfold. Later, when a reporter approached her outside, she said calmly, "People forget that the legal system is made up of individuals. When those individuals aren't held accountable, the entire system becomes corrupted." Over the next 48 hours, the Judicial Conduct Commission released a preliminary statement confirming that Judge Pierce's disclosures would be reviewed thoroughly. Insider whispers spread that Pierce had been involved in similar cases in the past. Meanwhile, Karoline's defamation suit gained momentum as her evidence was taken seriously, shifting public opinion. At a quiet coffee shop near Victory Park, Karoline met Malcolm Reyes. "Do you regret standing up?" he asked, stirring sugar into his mug. Karoline looked thoughtful before replying. "If I had kept my head down, I'd still be in the shadows. Now I can look people in the eye." They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of the day's events settling between them. By Friday afternoon, the Judicial Conduct Commission made it official. Judge Ronald Pierce was placed on indefinite administrative leave pending a full ethics review, though no charges were pressed yet. The scandal had rocked the courthouse. Karoline didn't celebrate publicly. She simply posted a quiet message on her professional page. Truth matters, even when it's inconvenient. Later that weekend, at the same coffee shop, a local reporter asked her, "Do you regret exposing this?" Karoline shook her head softly. "Had I stayed silent, nothing would have changed." We needed to break the silence. In the ensuing days, the story spread like wildfire. Headlines such as Judges' Bias Exposed in Open Court and Karoline Leavitt holding power accountable dominated news cycles. Conversations erupted in legal forums, at town halls, and on social media. People debated whether the system had been right to allow such unchecked authority, and whether the exposure would lead to real, lasting change. For Karoline, the trial was not just about clearing her name. It was about demanding accountability from a system that had long operated in the shadows of bias. As she sat outside the courthouse one crisp morning, alone on the stone steps, she pulled her coat tighter against the cool breeze. No cameras, no reporters, just her, the quiet resolve in her eyes, and the memory of that day when the truth broke free. If this story has moved you, share it. Speak up, because sometimes the biggest shifts begin with the quietest voices. And if you haven't already, subscribe to our channel for more stories that challenge the boundaries of law, ethics, and the courage to stand by the truth. Subscribe for more stories that challenge the boundaries of law, ethics, and personal conviction. Oh, 3 Minnie, hi.